Hello, everybody. Welcome to another spicy, red hot episode, piquant of the Chocolate
Oof.
Bros podcast. You're here with Brian and Adam, we're the Chocolate Bros, owners of Fortunato Chocolate. Go ahead, Brian. Hit
Yeah,
it with
that's
something.
correct. It's spicy. I'm getting just a little bit of mist up here on the top piece, and yeah, we are the Chocolate Bros. You're my brother, and we have the same mom, different dads, and we own a chocolate company, and it's called Fortunato Chocolate. You can find us at fortunatochocolate.com. You can also come to our retail store, either of our retail establishments in Issaquah, Washington, a lovely bedroom community about 15 minutes east of Seattle. You can find us, I think I mentioned, online, and heck, you can come on down to Peru and just visit us in the jungle if you want.
Hey,
Not
I've never heard Issaquah described as a bedroom community.
That's
What's
right,
that?
because
What does that
well,
mean?
it's a community, and we have bedrooms here for
Lot,
sleeping.
lot, a lot of communities have those.
Almost every, but typically a bedroom community would be considered a suburb, a
Okay.
15-minute suburb of a larger metroplex.
Because I've never heard Issaquah. I've never heard the bedroom situation accentuated here in Issaquah. Hey, I'm going to
Well,
Seattle. You know where I can find a good bedroom? Listen, man.
Issaquah.
I don't
It's a
want to.
bedroom community.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but this little town where we do business is they got a mean bedroom over there.
Absolutely. Well,
They got
Adam,
beds. There's
you're not
drawers.
you're not as mature and sophisticated as I am, and so I will chalk up your boyish reluctance to talk about matters of the bedroom to that. But yes, Issaquah is commonly known and referred to as a bedroom community of Seattle. That is the
All right, two things before we get going. First off, we got to shout out two of our wonderful customers. I'm talking about Luca Church and
Mm,
Daniel Church. These are
yep.
two gentlemen. Luca's 6 years old. He's the official chocolate taster of Fortunato Chocolate. He tastes our
Mhm.
products. He tells us if they're good.
Came in
Daniel,
Saturday and did a little work, put a little work in on Saturday.
and I saw him again in the parking lot just a couple of days ago. And these
Mhm.
guys asked us why we didn't do a podcast last week. And honestly, they shined a light on us. They
That's right.
shined a
They
light on
they
me, and
they exposed us for the hypocrites that we are. I
yeah,
got to be honest. Yeah, yeah.
it made me take a hard look at myself. When you're
What'd you
walking,
find? What'd you find when you looked in that mirror? What'd you see staring back at you, Adam?
I need to try harder, Brian.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
need to just give a little bit more.
That's the book on you. Just not motivated. Just a lazy
Yeah.
fella.
When you're walking in the dark, you can't see yourself. But when someone shines a light on you and puts a mirror in front of
Mhm.
your face, you really have no choice but to look right at yourself. And I didn't like what I saw.
Well, that's when the cockroaches scurry. That's it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Well, here's the thing, Adam. I see your emails and they come every day. It's like 359 of 1,000. Why are you limiting yourself to 1,000? Try harder, Adam. Why not
Well,
2,000? Why not
one
10,000?
honestly, if Jerry Seinfeld has a thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know Jerry Seinfeld. You're familiar with
I
this person.
have, I'm aware of his work. I have seen him live.
Uh-huh. So he had a thing where he just wanted to write one joke every day. And
Mm-hmm.
every day when he wrote a joke, he would cross the date off of his calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And he said eventually you get so many X's on your calendar that you just don't want to break the streak.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that when I get to 1,000 days of doing
Mm-hmm.
something, I'll probably just keep going because it would be a shame to stop, you know?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gets to be more and more of a big deal. It's Cal Ripken syndrome, I think.
What's that? How's that work? Same kind of thing?
Just the youth and inexperience over here. It's Cal
I know who
Ripken.
Cal Ripken is, but I don't know what Cal Ripken syndrome is.
Well, the Cal Ripken syndrome. He played the most consecutive games of any
Oh,
baseball player.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, and he broke the record, and it's like, well, he's not gonna now. He's got the record, he's attained it, but he didn't. He went on and did it for another 1,000 games or something. It was ridiculous. Because exactly what you're saying, you don't arrive at that point and say, I did it. Whew. No, you arrived at that point because you've got the habits that got you to that point, and it would be a shame to discontinue those great habits. So you keep rolling.
Let me say something else about my interaction with Daniel and Luca.
Mm-hmm.
There is also power in knowing that somebody wants something from you. You know what I'm saying?
You mean
Because
like the
because
power
they
to extort like extra a
yeah,
higher price from them? Is that did you actually charge?
no.
Did you overcharge Daniel and Luca?
So if you know, for example, if you know when you get home from work, your
Mm-hmm.
kid's there waiting to play catch with you.
Right.
You know that.
Mm-hmm.
So even though you might want to stay a little late to do a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more work, that power of somebody really wanting something from you
Mm-hmm.
can overcome uh, a lot of other things. So just knowing that Luca
Mhm.
and Daniel liked hearing our podcast and sometimes would go online and check for us, just
Mhm.
knowing that makes me want to block off time on the calendar and not miss this time that we have set aside to record one of these.
Yeah. Well, there's several good reasons to do this podcast. One, I just like talking with you. We always have, it's fun. Two, certain people, there are as many as double digits of people that actually look forward to it and really want to hear it. And we salute them. It's good to be, it's
There are
good to
as
be in
many
a
as
habit.
I'm going to just cut in on you and interrupt you. There are as many as 2 or 3 dozen people
Yeah.
waiting for this thing.
That consistently want it, but it's a good habit to be in. It allows us to enunciate some things that are rattling around in our heads and get them out. It could I have this weird amorphous concept that it could be good for business someday. I don't think
I think it's
I'm not sure I see the actual path to that, but it can't hurt, right?
no, it can't hurt. That's right. That's
Yeah,
a really
unless you say something offensive, which happens fairly frequently. And in that
not
case, it's alienating to our potential customers.
not while we're recording, Brian. Not while we're recording.
Wait, we record this?
Yeah, these record. But I haven't said
Oh.
anything offensive on these podcasts either.
No.
Actually, generally speaking, we're not offensive people. I don't think so.
No, I'd say I'd probably rank myself as slightly above you on the offensive scale.
Yeah, I'm pretty
You're innocuous. You're innocuous.
Yeah. I try not to rock the boat. I'll come right down the middle.
Oh my God.
People start complaining about Republicans. I go, I see where
Mhm.
you're coming from. Yes, I can. And then they start complaining
Right.
about Democrats. I say, oh yeah, no, for
Yeah,
sure.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I got the chance this last Saturday to meet Luca and his father Daniel for the first time, and great people.
Those are great people.
So I also heard his admonishment about the podcast and took it to heart. And by the way, this shout out could be going to a bunch of different regulars that come into that come in to the store on Saturdays. I just look forward with great anticipation to seeing them and speaking with them and seeing happy customers and watching little dudes and dudettes roll in and their face light up when they try the stuff or try the ice cream. It's really heartening and it's really fun and really interesting. And so there's a bunch of people that deserve a shout out. First and foremost, Daniel and Luca for sure.
Shout out to everybody. Luca is a particularly cute and funny and cool kid. So
Straight up good fella.
Now here's another thing, Brian, I want to hit you with before we get into the main thrust of this podcast.
Sure.
When I signed on, I said, hey, welcome to another spicy, red hot episode of the Chocolate Bros podcast. Let me ask you, where's your tolerance on spice, bro? How hot? And now don't compare it to Peruvians, because Peruvians don't go very spicy.
No, Peruvian food is typically not spicy.
And don't compare yourself to a typical American. I want you to compare yourself to Thai, Vietnamese, Indian, Mexican. Where do you rank yourself in that, on that scale?
Yeah, I'd say I'm top half probably. I do like spicy food. I add spice to almost everything I eat, whether it be red chili pepper flakes, sriracha, Mexican hot sauce. I like the tapatio, the other stuff I forget with the little wooden ball top on it. I can't go like full. So I'll give you an example. I went to have ramen the other day, and if there's a spicy ramen option, I'll typically go for the spicy. And a lot of times it'll be 1 to 5 peppers.
That's the question I was going to ask. Where do you?
I'm 4 pepper. I'm a 4
pepper.
You
can do 4 peppers.
I'm 4 peppers. Yep.
That's heavy.
I'll go 4. And typically, so normally they think this guy doesn't really want it spicy. I don't feel like 4 is actually 4. I feel like if you do 5, they take it like, oh, really? and then they actually make it a full on 5. I feel like if you order a 1, they're like, it doesn't come spicy. A 5, it's over the top. 2 and 3 are probably pretty straight. 4, you're telling them I really do like it spicy, but I think it's more like a 3.5. I'm not sure it's possible to even get a 4. I think I am a 4, a solid 4. I like spice.
You would be a 4 if they did a 4, but you don't. Think
yeah,
you think.
I think I order 4 and I'm getting a 3.5 because they're like, if he really meant it, he would have ordered 5. So I think that when you order 4, you get 3.5, maybe 3 3/4, and I could do like a 4 1/4. That's what
I've got an issue with these people interpreting a 4 down to a 3.5. If I said I wanted 4, I wanted 4. Why are you messing with it?
You'll have to take that up with them. What about you? Where I would rank you as a 1, 1.5.
Yeah. No, I'm super light on spice. Yeah. I feel about spice the same way I feel about sweetness and chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that if it's overdosed, it blows out your palate and you really can't
Yeah.
taste the other ingredients.
Yeah. By the way, I agree. I don't really
Oh.
like spice just for spice's sake. I like flavorful
Yes.
spice.
So
Yeah.
there's a place in town here, a Pakistani restaurant that's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't ask them for any adjustments to the spice level.
It is how it is.
Look, the recipe is what it is. It needs a
Mhm.
certain amount of this pepper to make
Right.
it taste the way it's supposed to taste. If you can't
I
handle
respect that. I respect that.
if you can't handle that, then I'm sorry, but we're not going to
Mm-hmm.
compromise it down to suit
I
your
like that
to suit
concept.
your
I
weak
honestly,
taste
I
buds.
like that better than making people choose some subjective
Now,
amount of peppers. I like their angle on that.
now I would argue that a one is a one. Although
Mhm.
once I ordered I ordered a Kung Pao chicken in a Chinese food restaurant with a one, and they just didn't put any of the sauce on it. And they just gave me like wok fried chicken that didn't taste like anything.
Yeah.
And they said, this is a number one Kung Pao. Two, to me, is almost always too. I can't believe I'm admitting. Two is almost always too spicy to me. And
I'm just picturing you like taking a bite of some fairly pallid, spicy, just like it's got a little bit of orange sauce, right? 2 peppers, and your sweat starts breaking out on your forehead, and you're fanning yourself.
I'm waving them over. I say, hey, are you
like,
sure?
Oh.
Wait, hey, are you sure this is a 2?
She's like,
I
no,
ordered a
that's actually a 1.5. We knew you weren't serious.
So I think on the 2 they go, oh, he wants some spice. So they hit it with more spice than you really want. Kind of like the opposite of the 4. It's like he wants it spicy, but not so spicy.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually would be a 2. I can't go. A 3 is insanity for me.
Yeah. This morning when I came in, I had breakfast and I put a little Peruvian uchua sauce on it. And it says spicy, but I didn't think it was going to be spicy. It actually had a little kick. Typically sauces that say spicy, like Peruvian huancaína sauce, it's supposed to be spicy, but I don't find it.
That's not very spicy. No.
Spicy. Yeah. This said spicy. I wasn't expecting it to be spicy. It had a pleasing kick to it. I still added more spice, but it had a pleasing kick.
Is this wrong or right? Most Peruvian spice comes on the side.
Yes,
it's not normally a part of the recipe.
That's correct.
They put a thing of hot sauce on the table, and people can kind of
right. So I think we've talked about this before. And at almost any Peruvian meal that you sit down at a table to, there will be a little ramekin of what they call ají, which is also just the word for pepper. But ají, in the context of sitting down to eat in Peru, is a sauce. And now that sauce could be just a little bit of oil, spices, and ground up rocoto pepper, and it could be genuinely really hot and just like burn your tongue hot. Excuse me. Most often it's not that. Most often it's actually especially in like pollo a la brasa and chicken places, it's mixed with mayonnaise and it's not really spicy. It's flavorful. I use it. It's good.
It is flavorful. You can taste the pepper.
Yeah. You can. So you typically, if you see a yellow or more orange colored and it looks kind of creamy, that's not going to be super spicy. It's not going to blow your mouth out. But if you see a red one that looks a little more watery and a little less creamy, proceed with caution, my friend. Proceed with caution. That's rocoto pepper, and rocoto peppers are bona fide warm.
They're
warm to the touch. Yeah.
All right, bro. Good. Well, I'm glad that we were able to clear the deck of those 2 pressing issues. You know what I'm saying?
Sorry, yeah, I just had to have a little sip of tea. I've got this cough that's been going on and makes my throat a little sore. So I got to wet the whistle for this podcast.
Yeah, wet it up. Yeah. All right. So now getting on to the main thrust of this episode, I wanted to talk.
Let's thrust in the main direction, Adam.
Yeah. No, I mean, what if you thrust it in the?
Yeah. No. Proceed.
No, I'm just saying, you don't want to.
This is something that we've had in the store for a bit, which is it's always great to manage somebody on something that they're already doing.
Yeah.
And make sure that so when you say let's proceed on the main thrust, I like to give you a little management, which is
just make sure you tell me to go in the right direction.
Yeah. So go ahead, Adam. Go ahead and do that. What you were going to do there. Yeah. Proceed.
Now you go ahead and do it.
I said okay. I will.
You don't even know what the topic is. Bro.
Oh, you jujitsu'd me. Darn it. Yeah. How did you do that?
So I want to talk about youngsters today, Brian.
Mm-hmm.
I like the word youngster as an aside. It reminds me of John Wooden, the basketball coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a book.
He used that word quite a bit.
He did when he was describing his student athletes who played on his basketball team. He always referred to them as his youngsters.
He's the Hall of Fame coach
Yeah.
of UCLA that won 6 or 7, 8 national basketball championships in a
10.
row.
10.
10. Okay.
Yeah, and he wrote a great book called
Thanks for
Wooden.
correcting me, by the way. We wouldn't want anybody to think that I was off by 2 national championships. I appreciate that, Adam.
Look, if you don't know about John Wooden, then maybe you let me do the talking about him. All right, if you're not sure about it.
I mean, I'll just climb up over here and you can just go ahead and take it away. Just
No,
take it
well,
away.
I'm gonna hand you. Believe me, I'm gonna hand you the baton because I'm just saying. But John Wooden's not your thing. You're rolling your eyes. Have you read the book by John Wooden?
No, but I'm familiar with the works of Wooden.
All right. Loosely, like superficially familiar with his works.
I mean, I'm aware of John Wooden and some of the
Yeah.
things that he did. Yeah.
Yeah. So at a high level, aware.
That's well, everything I do is high level, Adam, by definition.
All right. So John with 10 national championships with UCLA. And he just for anybody who I was just gonna try to say
not 8. I just want to take notes here. Not 8 championships. There was 10 championships.
I was just gonna say he wrote a great book. Yeah,
okay.
it's a good book. And he mentions how many championships he's won. And I read the book. So I'm familiar with him. In pretty specific detail. Don't want to brag, but I have read the book.
And it's not bragging. It's like it says our ex-president said, it ain't bragging if you done it.
Well, and if you preface anything with I don't want to brag, you pretty much can be certain.
Prepare to hear a brag.
Prepare for bragging. Yeah.
That's
so
right.
we want to talk about youngsters. Brian, here's what I want to ask you, since I know Luca's listening, and there may be other, several, maybe a handful, literally a handful, half a dozen other people listening who might have young folks in their lives. I wanted to ask you, tell us a little bit about the trajectory of a young person born and living on a cacao farm in the district of Huarango, in the jungle in northern Peru. I know everybody's different, but just tell me kind of like what their childhood is going to be like, where they're going to go to school, and then what they might kind of be transitioning into as they come into their late teenage and early adult years.
Yeah, that's a great question, Adam. I'm happy to say, excuse me, until very recently, there would have been 2 very distinct stories to tell, one for males, one for females. But I think that distinction is rapidly becoming less and less important in Campo as women, as Peru becomes a more modern, a little bit less machista society where women are not considered so much as inferiors and sort of destined for one particular track. I think a lot of possibilities have opened up for women that had previously been reserved for men. So I don't need to really separate it out at this point. excuse my cough, Adam. So I'm happy to say that. Let me talk about a sort of a preteen person. I'm going to talk about an actual person who I see several times a year, who's a wonderful young lady, and who's a person that I just adore and can't wait till I see her. And that is Don Fortunato's granddaughter, Millie. Her full name is Milagros. And Millie should be, I want to say Millie right now should be maybe 11 years old. Maybe
So you've known her whole life.
I've known her literally her whole life. She was a tiny little baby, swinging as Peruvians do. They would put her in like a hammock kind of a thing and swing her back and forth to get her to go to sleep. Excuse me. And I've been coming to her house and hanging out with Millie ever since she was a tiny little baby, since before she could walk. I just love her to death. We have a great relationship. I bring her stuff when I come from the United States. I like to hang out with her. Our company has provided her with a laptop to help her with her studies, and she's whip smart, bubbly, just wonderful. And so she goes to school in the nearest village, which is not Poronguito, El Porvenir. And El Porvenir is the last decent-sized town before you get to Don Fortunato's farm. I would say it's maybe 2 or 3 miles down the road.
So this is a country school, bro.
Yeah. So the little town of Porvenir is Salipi. This place is
we're talking about. We're in the canyon.
Yeah. We're in the
Out in the
canyon,
countryside. This is a country
out
school that goes
deep
out
in the
there.
canyon. This
Yeah.
is one of the far, fairly far for in terms of the areas that we get cacao from.
Uh-huh.
There
And
is
so she's
cacao further out, but it just gets logistically very difficult
so
to
it's 2 or 3 miles for her to get to school, but it's out pretty far.
Yeah, but that school is another 20, 25 miles out from where our facility is, and those are bad roads. That takes an hour.
Yeah.
So she's a couple miles, 2-3 miles from school, and a lot of days she'll walk that. And if you go on that road in the morning in the lead up to school, you'll see groups of 2 and 3 students all in their uniforms walking to school from the farms in the surrounding areas all morning. And they're coming down
It's hot out there. It rains all the time.
It's hot, it rains. And so sometimes any vehicle that's driving by will pick up kids as best they can. A lot of families have a motorcycle or a moto taxi, a 3-wheeled moto taxi, and they can take, and any vehicle that's going by is going to end up just, buried in kids looking for a ride. I've given, I don't know, 10,000 rides to school kids driving along those roads out there, driving a truck or driving.
Let me just chime in right there. That thing that you just said is so different from anything that could ever happen in the United States.
Right.
No strange, well, I guess people aren't exactly strangers, but no, you even if you know the person, you could barely pick up a kid and drive them to school if you saw them walking.
Yeah.
Even offer would be considered very strange, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Because that is a good sign of a strong community where people trust each other.
Yeah. So driving by many times when I was driving our pickup truck, affectionately known as El Burro, the donkey. It even has a donkey sticker on the side. As I would drive by, there'd be a group of 4 or 5 kids walking. And as you kind of come up behind them, you're not going real fast because the roads are bad. They'll kind of turn around and look to see who it is. And when they see it's a truck with an open bed, they might get a little bit of a look of hope or expectation, but they don't flag you down or anything. But if you roll to a stop and ask them where they're going, you know where they're going, and they say, "Oh, we're going to school in El Porvenir," you can say, "Hop in," and they'll scamper up into the back of the truck and very, very gratefully and happily and catch a ride. And you can hear them back there chattering, having a good time. It'll save them some energy, saves them some time,
and it's fun. It's fun to ride in the back of a truck.
And it saves their shoes because they have these uniform shoes that are cheap and not comfortable and wear out really easy, and it's a struggle for them to buy more. So it helps save wear and tear on their shoes, which is really helpful for them too.
All right, so Millie's going to school in El Porvenir. She's 11.
Millie would wake up and she'll have breakfast. She's lived with her grandparents her whole life. Her mom is sometimes there and sometimes elsewhere working. Right now, mom is there and back and living there. Because Don Fortunato and his wife need some help around the house now, and she's there to help them and to help raise Millie. And so she would get up probably 7 or something. She'll have
is that pretty common for a parent to leave their child with the grandparents so that they can go to a city and work?
It happens. I know some families like that. I wouldn't say it's super common, but it does happen. It does happen. I mean,
I guess it would matter if the grandparents are good people and can competently raise.
Yeah. Well, a lot of parent-child relationships in Campo aren't the kind of the tight, loving, sentimental relationships that we maybe think of. It's not quite as, like I say, it's not quite as overtly loving or sentimental in Campo. I think it's just a different culture.
Yep.
It's not huggy. It's not lovey. It's respectful.
And that's not only a Campo thing. I know, for example, my wife grew up with sort of, my wife Neri is from Peru, and she grew up with what I would say is probably like the last generation of old school Peruvian parents.
Yeah.
Where it's like your kids are expected to obey.
Right.
That's what it's
is. It's not huggy and lovey.
It's not huggy. They don't hug. They don't say I love you all the time. They don't tell you how proud they are of you. They do love you. I mean, they provide for you and take care of you and stuff. Mm-hmm. But it's just not real expressive.
It's not expressive. It's not real sentimental. Yeah. It's just different. It's just a lot different than that. It's just a cultural thing. Mm-hmm. And so so Millie has lived with her grandparents her whole life there on that farm. And so she'll get up in the morning, probably, I don't know, 6:30 or 7 in the morning. She's got some chores to do. I know that she has to feed the ducks and clean up and do some things with some of the animals there. And then she would eat breakfast, put on her uniform, start walking to school. I'm guessing school for her would start at like 8:30 or 9.
And all
something
Peruvian
like that.
schools are uniform. Everybody wears uniforms.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. You're wearing a uniform every day to school. And then she would be at school probably until from like maybe 9 until 2, you might guess, something like that, because that's when you see kids leaving. And then she would come home and have a late lunch. When he can go get her, Don Fortunato goes to get her, or now because Priscilla, his daughter, Millie's mom, is there, Priscilla probably goes and picks her up. Come back, family lunch, chill out for a little bit, siesta.
And also sometimes walking back, sometimes coming on a motorcycle, sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes walking with your friends. It's a time to chat with your friends and giggle, and they have phones now.
Getting out of school is excellent everywhere.
Yeah,
dude.
they're
Being
walking
a
on the
kid
road.
and you're done for the day and you're with your friends. That cuts across culture. That's awesome.
Boys and girls are flirting. There's groups of boys that are roughhousing, and they'll start goofing off on the side of the road, and you see them playing, and boys are checking out the girls are checking out the boys, and it's just it's a social scene, and they're walking home. And then she would get home, eat lunch, relax a little bit, and then she's got homework to do. She'd do her homework, help out around the house a little bit, and then in the evening it's just family time. But
you're out on the farm.
They're out on a farm. Now since the last, I'd say 2 years, they have a TV. But they don't have like what we would consider cable service or a satellite dish or anything like that. But they can pick up a couple
antenna.
They can pick up a couple of broadcast channels, and they might watch the news or something like that. And so that's her life. And where is that leading? I mean, the ideal forward path for her would be get good grades and be able to get into a university. And that is by all means her grandparents and her mom's expectation, is that she would go to university, become the first one in her family to go to university. And this is the dream of every farm family in Campo, that kid will study hard, do well, stay out of trouble, qualify for university. And then comes the great question of how do we scrape together the money to put this kid into college?
And what is a kid like Millie maybe studying college? What is their demand for in Peru around where they live?
So, I mean, if she wanted to be in Campo, she would, the more common forward path would be agricultural engineer, ag engineering.
And then working for a non-for-profit or working for the government?
It could be. So, I mean, ideally you'd hope that some of those kids would become agronomic engineers and come back and take over the family farm and run it like a business.
Run it profitably.
And make it thrive. Yeah, that would be the dream. But also, yes, there are the state government and the local governments hire agricultural engineers to run different projects and so forth. You can use that to get into the fertilizer or seed business, or you can go to a trade school and become an agro vet.
Well, and there's more and more exports coming out of Peru as well.
Yeah,
that are exported internationally, so you can get with a big company that exports Peruvian products.
Yes, absolutely. So there, you can get a job with one of the middlemen companies in Jaén in the region as a buyer, getting out into the Campo and helping farmers improve their crops, because you want better inputs to your funnel as an aggregator, as a crop aggregator. So coffee, for example, let's imagine Don Fortunato is a coffee producer. Let's say Millie went to college to become an agronomic engineer and focused on coffee. And maybe she would work for some nonprofits or the state agricultural department to working with coffee farmers. She might get a job with a big coffee buyer, helping farmers increase their yields and improve their post-harvest processing so that the inputs to that aggregator are of better quality. She will have a farm of her own if she wants to, and she could use her knowledge to create a profitable coffee farm of her own.
That's right. Yep.
So those are a lot of the different paths. Now,
there's coffee growing all over the place out there too. So you can get into business buying and selling coffee if you were entrepreneurial.
Yeah. She could also, if she wasn't in the agricultural field, business professional, engineer of any type, industrial engineer, food engineer. That's what Noé's son Freddie wants to do, is be a food industry, an industrial engineer in the food industry. So any kind of that sort of engineering, business administration, international business, hospitality. There's a track that takes you into hospitality. There are trade schools that help you become a mechanic or a heavy equipment operator. Senati is one of those. Those are government sponsored trade schools. Great idea that we should have here in the United States. So there are, many different, and then of course you can do a little bit more of a modern, a little bit more of an Americanized thing, which is go to college for,
Liberal arts.
a degree,
thing.
a
And
more
become a
something
teacher.
along the liberal arts side. That's a
And become a
teacher,
teacher.
track,
Yeah.
right? Things like that. And so, medical. There's always a need for doctors, nurses, dentists, medical professionals, veterinarians, and so
Well, let me
those
ask
are
you
career
this,
tracks
Bill.
to take. Mhm.
Let me ask you this. So you've got a 15-year-old daughter
I have one. Yes,
living in a different part of Peru.
I have a 15-year-old
Not
daughter
living on the
living.
farm. She's living in the city of Cajamarca.
He lives in the city of Cajamarca, a city of about 130,000 people in the high Andes Mountains, the opposite climate and everything of the low jungle where the cacao is.
So let me ask you, so now maybe a more general question. I mean,
Mhm.
this is going to be a little bit specific to Peru.
Yeah.
But in general, you've lived a while. You've been around a while. I don't want to.
I've been around the block, Adam, and I got
Yeah,
to
I've been
tell you-
around the block.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
look good. You look good. If people knew your real age and they're watching the video, they'd be shocked.
I'm
look good.
74 years old. 74
All
years old.
right, so yeah, maybe you do more or less look your age, now that I'm looking at you. But anyways,
so wait a minute, you thought I was older than that? You thought I was like 90 and that I looked 74 and that's why I
no,
looked
just
good?
when I hear you say 74
Vaguely
out loud,
insulting.
when I hear you
Vaguely
say
insulting.
74 out loud, I go,
Mhm.
maybe he does look his age. I thought people would go like, no, I can't believe it. But now that I'm getting a hard look at you, because you get the wrinkles around your eyes, and
Oh yeah, no, I look my age. I'm 54 for anyone listening.
and your neck is starting to get a little loose and stuff. So no big deal.
How dare you?
So yeah, all right. So you're 54. You got a 15-year-old daughter.
I do.
Like, if you could just give your daughter a couple of pieces of advice to hang her hat on, and I would argue, man, that as a parent, that's maybe what you kind of get. Like your kids walk away from their childhood with you. They have a lot of memories. You have all these memories, but basically there's a couple of themes that you get from your parents. I think. Don't you think that's right? You basically walk away, you go like, these are a couple of things that I can use to sum up what I learned from my dad.
Right. And those, yeah. And if it's a half a dozen things, I'm hopeful that, like 4 will be good and only 2 bad, maybe.
Yeah, but but I'm talking about good things, right?
Okay.
Hopefully
Yeah.
there's, all right, so
maybe you get a half a dozen tries. Yeah.
all right, so your daughter's 15. She's in Peru. First, let me ask you this. What do you think she's likely to do now with her life? What do you, and then
like
the second part is, and if there's just two things that she learns from you and she walks away and says, this is what I got from my dad, what do you hope they'll be?
Okay. So
and then I'll do mine too.
Right. Number one thing, and I've stressed this to her since she was a little girl, do not get on the back of a motorcycle with a Peruvian boy. Just don't do it.
Even when she's in the United
It doesn't matter to me. No getting on the back of motorcycles, because those boys are trying to show off and they're going to do something dumb, and then you're liable to get injured or hurt, and we can't have it.
So no riding. What about driving a motorcycle?
No, absolutely not.
There's no motorcycles, period.
No. Motorcycles, no. Number 2, no smoochies for those poochies. We're not trying to give any kissies up to these mutts coming around her looking to bark up her alley. No. We're not having.
We're talking about figurative mutts.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
you have an advice literally to not kiss strange dogs.
Those are 2 things I constantly tell her, kind of jokingly.
No motorcycle thing.
The motorcycle thing is not a joke, but she's a 15-year-old girl. She's beautiful. She's smart. She's vivacious.
People ride motorcycles in Cajamarca.
Yeah, and of course, boys are interested in her, and I want her to have a happy, satisfying love life. And I'm sure that's starting now. Not that she'd tell me about it, but that's more of a joke between us. But what I really tell her, and what I really want her to do is to not undersell herself, to understand the greatness that's in her, to understand and recognize the great, not to settle for. I don't want her to get into the habit of settling in her life, in her love life, in her job life, in her personal relationships. I want her to look for what's incredible and special about herself, and be dedicated to that, and be a faithful admirer of her own beauty, of her, not physical beauty, but all the beautiful things about her, and to not diminish herself for a boy or girl or whatever, not to diminish herself for a boss, or for her parents' dreams for her. Not, I don't want her to diminish herself in any way. I want her to feel her own greatness, and I want her to actively look for that greatness inside her, and act upon it,
and really,
nourish it and allow it to be great,
and try to become the best version of herself that she could be, and not allow anything to get in the way of that.
Exactly. And that's just generally all through life. I want her to do that in her career, in her personal life, in her relationship with me, in her romantic life, in all those things. And the other thing that I've constantly stressed with her, there's always somebody more beautiful or less beautiful. There's always somebody more or less smarter. There's always somebody more or less talented. But the thing that you control and always will control is your effort level. And so what I've always told her is, just try hard. Just be that grinder, because to the grinder goes the spoils. Greatly intelligent people, lightning can strike. That happens. And preternaturally talented people come along sometimes. But typically speaking, it's the 10,000 hour grinders that put their head down and work hard and get good at something that end up having the lion's share of the success, the acclaim, and the contentedness that comes with, moving forward down the field. So I feel like trying hard and being into it counts for more than intelligence and natural talent.
I agree with that. So I completely agree with that.
Those are the two things that I would tell her and anybody is, don't dim your light. Shine it, baby. Shine that light out into the world, and don't diminish yourself for any external reason. And try to identify the internal things that are causing you to diminish your own light, and deal with them, and face up to them, and stop doing that, and let your light shine at its maximum wattage, because that's the way it's meant to be. And give it your all. Approach fun, and approach work, and approach it all with a gritty, passionate energy that really helps to ensure success. Those are the two things I would say.
Honestly, dude, I think, and you do that too. So that's the good thing about that. I believe that, man.
Isn't it convenient that I'm giving her the advice to kind of do what maybe I should be telling her to do the opposite? I don't know, but it's what I know,
dude. If your parents tell you shouldn't lie, but they lie all the time, you're going to be a liar. Bottom line, right? Like, lip service doesn't even matter.
Yeah.
In fact, you could, you're telling me this now. You don't even need to tell. I bet you don't even really need to tell her. I mean, it's good to reinforce it, but if you have a parent who just does that, then you probably act that way too. People tend to become their parents, dude. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's
what happened.
The other thing, I know you only asked for two. The one other thing I constantly stress to her is, you're not predestined to make the same mistakes that I've made. You're going to make your own mistakes, but make them your own for your own reasons. Do your thing. You're not predestined. All the faults, the thousands of faults that I have as a human and as a father, she's not predestined to duplicate that. She's going to make her mistakes. I want them to be her mistakes for her reasons, because she's trying to do her thing, because it's her life. And I can't live it for her, and I don't want to. I want her to find her own greatness. So I think you're right. That it's very tempting, and it's very possible to really to replicate.
It's very likely. Yeah, it's very likely, unless you make a really conscientious effort to not do it.
That's what I urge her to do. Make that.
But still, so you're talking. You want to avoid your parents' mistakes, but then also, if you can, you do want to imitate what's good about your parents.
Yeah.
Like a lot of what you just said about allowing your light to shine, that's what's good about our mom, for example.
Yes, that's right.
She is who she is. She's happy with who she is, and she's willing to go all in on who she is.
That's right. Unapologetically.
Yeah. And we've been blessed enough to observe that. She's not without flaws. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening.
I don't know how you could say that, Adam. Don't you love our mother?
I love her very much. She's the best.
No, you're right. Our mom is incandescently herself. And she shines her light out into the world, and sometimes it hits at a weird angle, but it's always authentically her light, and it's coming from a place of amazing intention, always.
So it's good. Yeah. So you want to have a nuanced view, a nuanced view of your parents. And it's good for a parent to admit their imperfections, which it sounds like what you're doing. Like, look, I know more than you because I'm older, but I'm not perfect. And later on, when you reflect on me, discard all the bad stuff you saw me do. Because just because I did it doesn't mean it's something you ought to do too.
Right.
Right. And have a nuanced view of me. And the stuff that I did was good, copy it. Because there's your inclination to copy me anyways. And the stuff you don't like, conscientiously discard it. Because I'm an imperfect person. Like you really got to have a very nuanced.
Do it all with open eyes is what I want you to do. What about you, Adam?
I really wholeheartedly agree with what you've said. I would add a couple of things to it. I think for a person to be able to give the effort and to really shine their light on the world, they got to find their thing. There's something, there's something that you can do that you'll be willing to put the effort into. So if you just hate math, no matter how much people tell you to put forth a great effort, you're just never going to, because it doesn't light you up. On the other hand, if you love math, then, and some people really love math, then you'll pour yourself into it and become great. So there's something. And now this is something I keep an eye on my kids about. And one of the things that got me thinking about that is I wrote a book, I write these daily emails. We opened up a retail chocolate shop. That, like, the two things, writing and being in our retail chocolate shop, are things I deeply love.
And you're exceptionally advanced, exceptionally competent at both.
But that I haven't had the chance to do until I'm in my late 30s. And it just gets me thinking, if I'd have been doing this stuff when I was much younger, I don't want to, it's not like I could have been further ahead in the world, but there's a lot of joy that I could have experienced. And a lot of people I've been able to touch that I haven't been able to.
I agree with that. Let me ask you a question. If you had started earlier, do you think that you would have, maybe by coming to it at a little bit of a later age, all the accumulated experience and wisdom that you had acquired flavored it in such a way that it made it much better as you came out of the chute?
I don't think so.
I wonder about that.
It might be the case that that's true, that I only really appreciate it because I'm just now coming to it. But I think, and this is my opinion, and I can see it in my kids. So, I got 3 young sons. I can see it in them, how different each one of them is.
Yeah. They really are.
They really are all very, very different. And you can't preach effort to them on the same activities. So I have one kid who's very artsy. He's really a good cook. He loves food. He's a good cook. He likes music. And it is hellish to get him to work hard at math. On the other hand, I got a kid who's just a diligent administrative workhorse kind of guy. And he'll sit and knock out math and paperwork and do his homework. And it's what he's built for. But it's hard to get him to sing or play music. It's not his thing at all.
I smell a future accountant, Adam. I think this kid's taken after his father.
Yeah. Well, that's a good thing. Like my dad pushed me into accounting, and I was good at accounting. I was naturally good at accounting, but it never lit me up.
No.
It was never a thing I loved to do. I just did it because, it's how I was paying the bills. So I think, looking back in retrospect, had I gotten into the activities that I'm naturally inclined towards much earlier, I think it would have been a huge benefit. So if I could take some of my experience, like, you can't change the past. It's not like I'm bitter over it or anything. I mean, not very bitter, but
yeah, like 30%, 40% bitter on a daily basis.
Yeah, I mean, I've wasted the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean,
life doing work.
Bitterness spikes to it spikes to like 70% from time to time.
Only when I think about it.
Only when it's when it comes up.
Yeah, but when I'm numbing it, when I'm doing
obviously you keep it, you push it down and keep it down, then everything's fine. Yeah.
So I would just I think in order for you to be able to grind, in order for you to be able to give the effort that's requisite for becoming good at something, and in order to let your light shine, I think a big part of the reason why our mother has been so successful at letting her light shine is because she is always engaged in activities that are good vehicles for her
Mhm.
to be able to express her natural talents.
Mhm.
So I would just say for Amara, like Amara or my kids or whoever the youngsters are, I do believe somehow or another through genetics and just the experiences that you've already had in your young life, there's something, there's something that you're going to be better at than anything else. And the earlier you can get your head around that, the better your chances are that you'll be able to give the effort that you need to give to become great at
Yeah.
something.
So it's interesting you say that, because I've been a guy who's lived my life in chapters, and those chapters tend to be very kind of discreet, very, very apart. Like, so on the let's talk about the personal hobby side. There was years when I was an absolutely manic hiker. I mean, I hiked every trail in San Diego County. I went out to the desert. Every time I went anywhere, I built in days to hike. And I mean, hiking was my thing. And there was a time when I got really deeply into gardening and plants and mulching and all the, and I mean, I was deep into it and I was really, really good at it. And now I don't really hike much. And now I don't really garden much, but I'm a maniac snowboarder now.
Mhm.
Snowboard much more than would be reasonable for a guy with 2 kids and 2 jobs. So I've always been the type of person to throw myself into things, but I didn't find one lifelong passion that went all the way through. It's been sort of chapter based.
But there is a common thread there, and it has, I believe it leads into where you're professionally successful as well. You're a guy who likes to always be learning new skills,
That's true.
learning and mastering new skills.
Mm-hmm.
So to the extent that you find yourself in a position or a job that requires you to constantly be just updating your skill set, learning new things,
Mm-hmm.
sort of being the spearhead or the vanguard of the people who need to go out, like learn it, create processes, manage it, lock it down,
Mm-hmm.
and then go on to the next thing. That's where you tend to succeed.
I guess the point is, it comes back to what you just said, and maybe it is the special thing that fires me up, the thing that floats my boat and that allows me to get fully into it, is that when I'm into something, I'm all in.
Mhm.
I'm willing to take a dive off the cliff into the sea of whatever it is and
Mhm.
get deep. It was processing cacao and putting up a cacao project for many years, and I really did it. I lived in the jungle and lived with the farmers and rode the motorcycles and suffered the heat and carried the cacao, and I was all in on that. And I've been all in on some other things in my life, and so maybe my thing is not the thing itself, but the fact that I am
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah,
yeah.
I think
So
so. And
yeah.
and if I look at myself, I'm like, I just want to do chocolate and write for the rest of my life. I'm not thinking about nothing else. That's
Mm-hmm.
like, those are my 2 passions, and I'd be perfectly happy. I can see, I could already see that if I could live a life doing those 2 things, I
Mm-hmm.
don't like, I'm not like you where I feel like I need to jump in and learn and master new things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be happy just kind of sticking to my knit. So, but that's also why, we're a good team, because
That's right.
because when you're in
Nothing
business,
wrong with your way, nothing wrong with my way.
no,
We're
and you
different
need both.
people.
Yeah,
Exactly. You
you
need
do.
both. The world needs both.
You need someone to settle the land, and then you need someone to stay and work the farm. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good.
I just read a book about farming. So
That's really interesting. So
you need the pioneers, and you need the people who are going to settle and
yeah,
till.
yeah. What we're getting close to the end, but what would be
Yeah.
your other one? You talked. I gave sort of 2, and you gave one there, which is sort of find your passion, and then if you're going to grind in that direction, because it's going to be where your energy comes from. What else would you? What else?
Well, and you took the effort thing from me too.
Yeah, I
But
think that's fine. It's fine
no,
to
no,
do
no, no, no.
that.
But I would just say, so one thing I've taken from like reading a lot of books and just thinking about stories, because I've gotten pretty into telling stories. Pretty much like 99% of all stories are love stories,
Mm-hmm.
right? Falling in love, or they're stories about good against evil,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or they're underdog stories where you're overcoming some big challenge and it looks like you're going to lose, but you end up gritting it out and sticking with it in the end. So I
Mm-hmm.
have kind of developed a life philosophy where I think these are the 3 fundamental human desires. And if you do these 3 things, that's the key to a happy life. So I would also just suggest to my kids, look, these are the 3 things that are going to really make you happy. You're going to want to live a love story, right? You're gonna want to fall in love. You're gonna want to have some kind of a love story.
Or 2 or 3, but yeah,
Or
love.
2 or 3,
Just,
but you know, like
just
you're gonna have love. You're gonna want to be a part of a love story.
embrace love. Like our mom has
Hey.
always said, love's too rare. Love's too rare.
It
So
is,
when you got the
but
chance to embrace it,
but everybody is looking for a love story, man.
yeah.
So that's one of it. Here's another thing: get involved in the battle of good against evil.
Mm.
Like and that can manifest itself in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It could be religion, it could be protesting, whatever. But somehow or another, you're going to want to be in some battle on the side of good against evil. I think that's, you know, if you can do that, then you have a fulfilling life. And then you're going to want to be an underdog in an underdog story, and you're going to want to overcome and win in the end.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to want to put yourself in a situation to have that life experience.
So don't shy away from being the underdog. Just apply yourself and be the hero.
Those 3 things are like what most human stories are made up of, and that means that those are probably fundamental human desires. That if you put yourself in those situations, when you look back on your life, you'll feel like you lived a life that was worth living. Brian, I believe that your computer just froze up and you're no longer on the podcast. And if people are watching the YouTube video, they'll know that now. So I'm gonna go ahead and just sign us off. I thank everybody for listening to the podcast. I'm staring at this shot of Brian that is not very flattering, but I thank everybody. Please check out our website, www.fortunatochocolate.com, if you would like to learn more about our company, or come on in and check us out in our retail stores in Issaquah, Washington. Brian and I work an owner shift on Saturday mornings. We're usually there from 9:30 to 2:30 every Saturday if you want to come in and check us out in person. And I'm going to sign this off with the Fortunato jingle. Fortunato Yum. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.